Another key consideration for us as coaches when thinking about how we develop players in the physical corner is the work to rest ratios we set within a session. So you'd have seen on the previous graphic US Soccer's recommendations for playing time in small-sided games, how much blocks of time they have compared with how much rest they have in between. And it's important to consider for us as coaches when it's best for players to work individually, when it's best for players to work in pairs, small groups, or even as a team. So for example, if we were working on first touch or keepy uppies or dribbling, it may be best for players to work individually. Whereas when working on passing or receiving skills, it may be best to work in pairs. Or perhaps when we move into skill practices and we need a team of attackers with a team of defenders, it's best to work in small groups. The key consideration is the players learning, how much they're active in the session, the number of touches they take in the session, balanced against the physical output. So for example, a running with the ball session may be best to group players in 3s or 4s because of the physical output is so high. We need to give players the appropriate set of rest. So two ends of the spectrum really we want to avoid through our implementation of work to rest ratios. The one end of the spectrum would be young players stood around, not taking part, not feeling like they are part of the session. And we'd want to avoid long queues. We want players taking part in the session, having a high number of touches on the ball and feeling like they're actively engaged. The other end of the spectrum is the overuse injuries, or when the physical output of a session is too high. So we need to balance the work and the design of the practices in order to be in the middle of those two areas we want to avoid. Can we keep players actively engaged and have a high number of touches on the ball while also managing their physical output so they're not overexerted? Whether players work individually or in pairs or in small groups will depend on the session topic, the activity, how the numbers are split in terms of the practices, and also outside factors. For instance, the weather may have an impact also. A further method how as coaches we can cater for the physical corner within our session is our planning and implementation of a session timeline. And you can see an example on screen of a 15-minute session with blocks of time divided up and planned for, with a session introduction taking 1 minute, then a block of 3-minute playing time, followed by 1 minute of feedback, speaking to the group, followed by a further 4 minutes of playing time, perhaps with some of the tools from our coaching toolbox included, then a minute's break where the players can take part in a team meeting, followed by a further 4 minutes of playing time, and to finish, some feedback given to the group. This session timeline will help you cater for the players' physical output, with playing time, rest time being planned and implemented. This will also give players the exposure to lots of touches without the coach being dominant and speaking wherever they see fit in the session. The feedback and playing time is mapped out across an activity or across a session. Then by the end of the session, you could actually make a calculation on how many minutes have the players been actively taking part in the session. With the English FA recently releasing a strategy of having 80% ball rolling time in their sessions. This session timeline is an important consideration for this stage of your development as a coach.